Hi, it's 1010 the Navigator, and I am reading the Anunnaki Final Warning to Earth and Their Return in 2022, the 5th edition, by Maximilien de Lafayette. And we are continuing our reading. I'm starting on page 239. This is a question and answer section. We're still on part 3, but this section is about living continuously in 3 different time-space zones and Anunnaki. On the Science Channel, Dr. Michio Kaku said the universe is expanding, and there are many universes he called multiverses, where the same people live in different time and space zones. Is this something the Ulema can do? Ulema Master Kanazawa lived simultaneously in 3 different time and space zones. He lived as a real person in 3 different space or places at the same time. But the most important part of this phenomenon is the fact that he was living around 1896 in Ryukyu, the island of Okinawa. He had a family of his own and he enjoyed a normal life. Around 1939, Master Kanazawa lived in Kyoto, and for a short time he was a special advisor to Emperor Hirohito and the Japanese Imperial Navy. In this capacity, he advised Japan not to consider any act of aggression against the United States during the first year of the Japanese-American War. He vanished from the face of the earth. He reappeared in 1958 in Hawaii and rendered the most useful services to support scientific communities. The most amazing aspect of these separate lives is the fact that he has never aged. He remains the same person. Nothing has changed at the physical level, apparently, but the truth is Master Kanazawa did change enormously from within at his substructural molecular composition. On the outside, he looked like a regular human being, like you and me. On the inside, his molecules have changed considerably. This very change in his inner substance allowed him to traverse time and exist continuously in 3 different places and 3 different time zones. Master Mikami did the very same thing. Next question. This is about the Anunnaki purification and a new identity. You wrote somewhere about Anunnaki purification and a new identity a young Anunnaki receives after a purification ceremony on Nibiru. What do you mean by purification? Since you do not believe in the existence of soul, what are you talking about? Purify what? Dirty laundry? Assuming what you have said is true, I don't believe a bit of it. Can you tell me in plain English, how does this purification stuff happen and for what purpose? Answer. Note, particularly reproduced from my book, Anunnaki and Ulema from 450,000 BC to the present, Volume 4. The Anunnaki's purification process is called Huana Taha Ra. 1. Definition. 2. Anunnaki's purification and its relation to water in Judaism, Essene sect, and Christianity. 3. Anunnaki's Mif Malka Ru Hadosh. 4. Creation of the mental conduit. Note, Ulema de Lafayette has explained the Anunnaki's purification process so many times and wrote at length about it in 2 books. We can't reproduce herein everything he has written in the past, but we will give you a synopsis. But before we do this, we have to remind you that the term soul is referred to as mind in Ulamite literature. It is basically the same, but the structural composition of each is very different. 1. Definition. According to Ulema de Lafayette, the Book of Ramadosh, it means Anunnaki's student purification ritual before entering the classroom. It is composed of 3 words. A, huina, which means energy, life. B, ta, which means purification or mental cleansing. C, Ra, could mean many things, but in this situation, it is agreed upon that Ra means the elevated being. 2, Anunnaki's purification and its relation to water in Judaism, Essene sect, and Christianity. All Anunnaki students are required to purify their bodies before starting their course of studies, particularly the first stage called mental cleansing. This could have influenced an ancient tradition created by the Jewish scribes, who since earliest times had to purify their body before adding the name of God into the Torah. Ulema Naphtali ben Yaakov said, each student must purify his or her own mind or own being, mind alone, because the mixing of the impurities might produce a barrier to the proper purification. Incidentally, remember the Essenes? These Judaic sect members of the Second Temple era? At first, they used to be Anunnaki style. At first, they used the Anunnaki style of purification, but as time went by, their numbers grew. They changed into Makvah-like, a communal purification. A certain similarity can be established with the Christian baptism. It is all the same idea of purity and cleanliness. The Christians believe that the mind and the spirit are indeed cleansed by the baptism. The purification exercise occurs inside a small room entirely made of shimmering white marble. In the middle of the room, there is a basin made out of the same material and filled with a substance called Na-Ra Shams, an electroplasma substance that appears like liquid light. It actually means an Anaka, the light or the liquid of light. A, now or nur, or sometimes menur or menurah means light. B, shams means sun. Nur in Arabic means light. The ulema in Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon use the same words in opening ceremonies. Sometimes the word nur becomes nar, which means fire. This is intentional because the ulemas, like the Phoenicians, believe in fire as a symbolic procedure to purify the thoughts. 3, Anunnakis, Milf, Malka, Ra, Hadosh. The Anunnaki's purification does more than purify the body. The substance Anunnaki use purifies the mind and the spirit as well. It is all very pleasant. Every minute you spend in the basin, you will feel lighter, happier, and more complete within yourself and sparkling clean. The second phase of the purification is called Nif Malka Racho Dosh. Nif means mind. Centuries later, it was used by terrestrials as nifs, or ruha, meaning spirit or soul. Since the Anunnaki do not believe in a separate soul, or at the time they did not believe in a separate soul, the mind was the only source of creation and mental development, while humans continued to interpret it as soul. Nif, nifs, nifs, nafs, nefesh mean the same thing in Akkadian, Hittite, Aramaic, Hebrew, Agartic, Arabic, Syriac, Turkish, and Anunnaki languages. Malka means kingdom or higher level of knowledge and mental development. Humans changed Malka to Malakut or Malkaut, and these words are used in Aramaic, Hebrew, Syriac, Coptic, Arabic, Phoenician, and so many other languages. Ruha is the highest level of mental achievement. The Arabics use the same word, Ruh, R-O-U-H, while the Hebrews use the word Ruach. However, the meaning changed in both languages to represent soul, not mind, as originally understood in Anunnaki language, and Dosh means reverend or holy. In Hebrew, it is Kadosh. After the phase of purification, the Anunnaki student enters a moderately sized room off the classroom. In the room, there is a cell shaped as a transparent cone. The cell floats in the air approximately 12 centimeters above the floor. The top of the cell is connected to a beam originating from a grid attached to the ceiling floating in the air. It is totally suspended on its own. The student steps inside the cone, a door opens, and the student enters the contraption. Inside the cone, a clear fog begins to form in the center. After a short while, the fog's color changes from white to silver blue in the form of waves, and the student starts to see his or her thoughts registering on a machine serving as an information board, which is posted on the right side of the cell. These thoughts begin to take physical shape, which is instantly copied to a screen. The screen transforms the thought forms into a code. Almost instantly, the code is transformed into a sequence of numerical values. The sequences are the genetic formula of the student. This genetic formula is the identity registration of the Anunnaki student. In terrestrial terms, you can call it DNA, but it's more than that. It is the level of mental readiness for the next stage. At this point, the student begins to hear a direction in his or her head as clear as if someone is talking to him or her directly. This is the moment when the student has been approached on the telepathic level. The student is instructed to free his or her mind from all thoughts. It is something like what the Japanese called koan, or they call kara, a state of mind nothingness. 4. Creation of the mental conduit. Then something starts to happen. Rays of various densities and colors surround the student in a cloud. It is tempting to compare it to the aura in terrestrial terms, but it is not the case. It is not an aura because it is not bioorganic. It is entirely mental. What happens next takes only one moment. This is the most important procedure done for each Anunnaki student on the first day of his or her studies, the creation of the mental conduit. A new identity is created for each Anunnaki student by the development of a new pathway in his or her mind, connecting the student to the rest of the Anunnaki psyche. Simultaneously, the cell check with the other copy of the mind and body of the Anunnaki student to make sure that the double and or other copy of the mind and the body of the student are totally clean. During this phase, the Anunnaki student temporarily loses his or her memory for a very short time. This is how the telepathic faculty is developed or enhanced in everyone. It is necessary to serve the whole community of the Anunnaki. The individual program inside each Anunnaki student is immediately shared with everybody. Incidentally, this is why there is such a big difference between extraterrestrial and human telepathy. Ulema Rabbi Mordechai said, "On Earth, no one ever succeeds in emptying the whole mental content from human cells, like the Anunnaki are so adept at doing, and as such, the conduit cannot be formed. Lacking the conduit that is built for each Anunnaki, the human mind is not capable of communication with the extraterrestrials. However, don't think for a moment that there is any kind of invasion of privacy. The simplistic idea of any of your friends tapping into your private thoughts does not exist for the Anunnaki. Their telepathy is rather complicated. The Anunnaki have collective intelligence and individual intelligence. This is directly connected to two things. The first is the access to the community depot of knowledge that any Anunnaki can tap into and update and acquire additional knowledge. The second is an individual prevention shield, also referred to as personal privacy. This means that an Anunnaki can switch his direct link to the community off and on, perhaps better defined as his channel to other Anunnaki. By establishing the screen or filter, an Anunnaki can block others from either communicating with him or her, or simply preventing others from reading his or her personal thoughts. Filter, screen, and shield, plasmic, are interchangeably used to describe the privacy protection. In addition, an Anunnaki can program telepathy and set it up on chosen channels, exactly as we turn our radio set and select the station we wish to listen to. Telepathy has several frequencies, channels, and stations. When the establishment of the conduit is complete, the student leaves the conical cell and heads towards the section assigned to him or her at the classroom. The next question: were dinosaurs created by extraterrestrials? Answer: not every life form on Earth was created by the Anunnaki. It is important to remember that when the first expedition of the Anunnaki landed on Earth, our planet was already populated by an amazing variety of living organisms, animals, quasi-human species, and the earliest of human-animal forms, synthesized molecules, substances, and biological entities. Many of these life forms were created from cosmic dust. Some were the results of photosynthesis, and other groups were produced by bacteria and evolution inertia. Worth mentioning here is that the Anunnaki had no intent or interest or motivation in creating or altering the creation of pre-existing life forms that were deemed unnecessary or not very essential for starting and or carrying on their projects on Earth. The dinosaurs existed on planet Earth long before the Anunnaki descended to Earth. The dinosaurs first appeared about 230 million years ago. Their reign lasted over 100 million years. The Anunnaki arrived to Earth circa 449,000 BC. Besides, the Anunnaki, any expedition, did not consider the dinosaurs or remnants of the dinosaurs or similar reptiles necessary or useful for their plans for two reasons. A, they lacked mental, intellectual faculties necessary for understanding the instructions of the Anunnaki. B, their enormous size.